Okay, she's leaving. I know Zen's coming very soon and I can't wait. So here's something from AMD, came out a little while ago, on the cheap side, say $70. Now I don't want to hear it. I know you can get the Athlon X4 A60K for around $70 or $80, and I'm gonna be straight up. This sucks. It has 2 physical cores, however in every program like Cinebench and Windows Task Manager, it shows up as 1 core and 2 threads. I try to not let that bother me because I know the way AMD's cores work are different from Intel's. Its clock tie though, 3.7 GHz with the ability to boost to 4 GHz, and the cherry on top is it's unlocked. The biggest bottleneck of the APU in my opinion is not even the 2 cores, it's the 1 meg of L2 cache. It makes everything noticeably slower than it should be. Even while using an SSD as my main drive in these tests, it's noticeably delayed. So far there's no reason to go with this rather than the X4 A60K, which is also unlocked, has 4 physical cores and 4 megabytes of L2 cache. However, it does not have onboard graphics. And that's the only selling point I see this guy has. It has onboard R5 Radeon graphics clocked to 800 megahertz. So real quick, here's a realistic parts list of what you should be using with this processor. No aftermarket cooler, as long as you don't plan on doing any overclocking. More on that later. The motherboard was cheap and has all the features you need for this APU, other than official overclocking support, which you can do that on many boards anyway. The RAM is exactly what I have here, 8 GB of 2133 MHz memory from G.Skill, higher clocked memory of course for the iGPU. Here's a 1 TB hard drive, however I would personally go with the 120 GB SSD for slightly cheaper because I prefer speed over capacity. Lastly, here's a cheap case. And a system like this will be fine with a case that comes with the PSU. What? What's that? Don't use those PSUs? Boy, all these tests are being run off a 300 watt SFX power supply, generic power supply that came in a case, and it's perfectly fine. I even overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz, and I've been using this thing for a couple of years, so I don't want to hear it. The total is $230, and that's really freaking cheap for the hardware of a computer build. That's a plausible build, including this APU. Now the system I'm using is actually different. I'm using an MSI A68HM Grenade Motherboard. I've used this one before previously in another video, but this isn't the exact one. I bought another one because it was cheap. That 8 GB of 2133 MHz memory I talked about earlier, 300 watt power supply that came with an old case, an SSD for boot drive with a hard drive housing all my games on it. And lastly, good God, what is that thing on top? Okay, I have tried. This thing runs so hot. I thought maybe I wouldn't have this problem anymore because this has got a Vari, not like a Kaveri processor I did a video on with 4 cores that ran at 90 Celsius. So I thought maybe the little refresh would slightly fix how hot their APUs got. But that's classic AMD. All God of Vari really did was give a slight boost to the GPU. It didn't really improve thermals or IPC at all. Before we jump into performance metrics, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what you would be using this processor for. You're not a heavy use case individual. You play small games, and I'll tell you which ones work well in a minute. And you're not looking for a discrete GPU, and that's the important part. Because if you're getting a discrete GPU, you might as well go with the faster X4 860K. And no, as far as I know, you cannot use dual graphics mode with this and like an R7 240 or 250. But if I'm wrong, do correct me in the comments. If you use this okay, well thank you, Sunrays. If you use this processor, you're best off using integrated graphics, because if you're not, there's no reason to get this. Alright, now let me show you what this little $70 chip can do. So what can the A6 7470K run? At 4.2 gigahertz, because that is what MSI automatically overclocked to when I clicked on the OC Genie button in the BIOS. BioShock, the old one, at 720p medium-high settings, and the remastered one at 1080p, this is really weird, don't ask why this makes any sense, 16x anisotropic filtering, anti-aliasing on, and it got around 30 FPS average on a fight with a Big Daddy. Unfortunately, the new LEGO Star Wars was too demanding, the complete saga at 1080p. Castle Crashers 1080p Ultra, consistent 60 FPS. You can play Rocket League if you turn down a couple of settings, say 900p with the quality settings with low FXAA. Trine, an older indie game, at 720p high settings. CSGO, even at lowest settings, still around 40 FPS average, which is just unplayable. I couldn't do it. Oblivion, medium settings at 720p, around 50 to 80 FPS, there is some legroom there for higher settings. Escapist runs great. Starbound, 720p, around 45 FPS, which is perfectly fine for a 2D game like that. Left 4 Dead 2 at 900p, medium high settings, 60 to 80 FPS. And lastly, Minecraft, Max settings, I ran on 1.10.2, 900p, with only 8 chunks, because that's actually what killed it, was turning up the render distance. Now if I turn the chunks up, my FPS would just drop. So this APU actually does great on lighter titles at a lower resolution, typically, with no graphics card required. So what do you think about this APU? Leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time.